Ba-da-da-bum-bum, addy-addy-yeah, ba-da-da-bum-bum, ba-da-da-bum-bum, addy-addy-yeah. Well, great. Ladies, we have a question for you though. Can you tell me how has the role of white supremacy played into the way that you see yourself when it comes to beauty standards?
It's so prevalent, and I'll start, and ladies, feel free to join in. So even just using that definition of white being the standard, and so when you are a person with brown skin, dark brown skin, the world tells you you're not as beautiful because your skin is not closer to white. There's things targeted towards you. It's in every magazine. Even actresses that we know to be darker in skin tone, their skin tone is bleached to make them look lighter, which even if it's not consciously told to you, which it is, it's also unconsciously told to you that that you don't fit that standard. And so you must be not as great. So that's a standard that I know has been a constant one for me. I've feel so lucky that I grew up with a mom who very much spoke into that before the world could teach me something different. And so there's always been a tension because my mom told me that that's not the case and I'm not defined by that. But I've always been seen that balance of people telling you you're pretty because of characteristics that lean towards being white or Eurocentric.
I'm in that similar boat, and I really struggled with my self-identity for a long time. Being in Dallas and being in Texas overall, a lot of people really assume that I'm Mexican, and I'm not. And that really challenged my identity when I was growing up because I didn't fit in. I wasn't American enough for my white counterparts, and I wasn't Hispanic enough for the Mexican counterparts that I was accustomed to in school, right? Because growing up, I wasn't growing up with a lot of people from Central America. And so that really played a huge part in helping me like lose myself because I didn't know who I was. I didn't fit in any category. And so, it wasn't until recently that as an adult, like I stopped straightening my hair as much or decolonizing my hair, as my friend loves to call it. And, small things like that where I'm happy in my skin. Plus within my own family, I have cousins and siblings and nieces and nephews that are blonde and blue-eyed. And so they're seen as the prettier ones. And in Hispanic culture, you get called like darky essentially as a nickname, morena, moreno, mi negrito. And so that, comes from just that colonization just from the very beginning of thinking that, white is better.
Yeah.
I feel like we're gonna get to the whole microaggressions and things like that. But I should have said this on the Zoom call last night. I don't know why this question bothered me. Actually, I do know why. It's a good question. It's one that I feel like we kind of know a little bit. We talk about it. If you go all the way back to the Madam C.J. Walkers and the standard of beauty and straight hair, and us fighting with our hair to assimilate and fit a narrative or fit a standard. You talk about the paper bag deal or not appreciating darker skinned women in the standard being white. But I was thinking about this, about what makes a woman beautiful. And of course, it's this. I mean, yeah, we see the physical, but I think for me, where white supremacy has crept in outside of, the nose width and the lips and the double standard, and now people are filling their lips, and yet, we were told our lips were too big and too, abrasive. But when you think of the way that we speak and the way that we carry ourselves as Black women, and not that one, we're nuanced. So there are girls that grow up in California and speak one way. There are Black girls that grow up in Chicago and speak one way. There are girls that grow up in Texas and speak one way. And so we're not all hood. We're not all Valley girl. It's just so nuanced. But the frustrating thing in white supremacy for me is that we're not allowed to be nuanced. It's just it's like a monotone type deal where it's, you're so articulate. As someone that does public speaking, as a dynamic communicator, as someone who frequently MCs events, I get frustrated when people come to me and they say, and it's mostly white people, and it's usually white women, and they say things like, "Oh my gosh, you're so articulate," and it's so infuriating, but you almost can't speak against it, because if you do, it's like, "Well, I just gave you a compliment. I mean, you speak well." If Megan would have come up to you and said, "You speak well," you wouldn't be mad. Of course, yes, because it's the history behind all of that. And then also the supremacy and standard of beauty in terms of how I present myself. I can't be appreciative. I'm a hood girl, bumper inner city. There is a hood in Williamsburg. They put us behind all the beautiful colonial things. But I'm not ashamed of where I'm from. And even here in Houston, we teach our kids, you better not ever be ashamed of where you're from. There are some days you just need to learn how to switch registers, not even on some code switching, on a sense of understanding. And so I feel like in certain spaces, when I do switch registers, it's almost like oh, you can speak well. And for me, there's a supremacy in that. And then also us not being able to use our voices without everyone, in particular white women, running away afraid, thinking that we hate them because we speak with a certain timbre in our voice. Some of us, again, because we're nuanced. So I don't know if that makes sense, but for me, beauty in terms of me being able to represent myself and be who I am in a space, and how you see me, that one day I can wear this and the next day I can throw on a wig and be down my back, and it doesn't become a whole entire topic of conversation to the point where I'm feeling uncomfortable, because it's like, am I that different? And so it's so nitpicky, but it's a burdensome deal, because when we do things, when it comes to beauty, it's so whoa, now let's focus on that all day. I'll give one example of that and I'm done with this. I lived in Branson, Missouri for 11 years. And as much as it is encouraging and and fun to get compliments on your children, I have 2 children, and they were born in Springfield, Missouri. As much as it's a compliment, you want to have the cute kids and the beautiful babies, and you want to have that. But it's so awkward when you are in a space where there are babies and children everywhere, and yours come along, and it's like everyone wants to touch yours. Oh, look at Asa and Avery, oh my gosh, and they just start touching on them, and then it's like this little baby that's right here, like, what do you know on this baby's face? It was a stark contrast. When we came around, everyone always wanted to comment on how Asa and Avery looked and put their hands in their hair. And I even had someone comment, there were some cute little monkeys, or that Avery's hair feels like cotton and things like that. And I just kind of go, or I can be in Billy Bob's as recently as 2 years ago, and someone walks up to me, a waitress, I'm sitting with a white older woman, and she goes, "You are so pretty." What did she say? She said, you are so pretty. Oh my gosh, I told the other men, "Gosh, you're just so pretty. I thought you people had acne." And so you just kind of go, and then my friend, older white woman, she kind of reaches out and grabs my hand, because already I'm like, and then I kind of just look at her and I go, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "Yeah, don't you people normally have acne?" And I go, "No." you know. And so it's this, there's no barrier that stops you from saying something inappropriate oftentimes when it comes to Black women and they just comment on things. I've had white men comment on my body because obviously in the culture, in the dominant culture, Black women are Jezebel or Mammy, Beyonce or Oprah. I've had men call me magic and you know, just you know, and I do think that it is different than our white sisters because I've been in a space where there are 500 white women. I was the only Black woman, and I had on a freaking burlap sack and I'm dancing two-stepping like this. I'm not moving a thing. And they're like, shake it, sister. You're just so, oh my God. I'm just going, I'm just moving. I'm moving like Sally's moving up there. So Sally is rolling with the homies and no one's commenting on her sex appeal. But everything that we do is sex, 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 and booty. And so anyway, all that to say, it's not nuanced, and it's always with a sense of I have freedom to comment on you in ways that other children and women aren't commenting on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Megan, I think you said you have an answer.
Yeah, originally I thought I didn't have a good answer for this because I'm not sure that I ever consciously have used white people to define beauty, which thankfully, right? But I think when Chantel starts to talk about dialects and the way that we, you know, code switch and the way that we feel the pressure of being, you know, perfect or assimilating, right? I think that that's real. Certainly in my profession, public speaking all the time, you know, people assign intelligence to certain dialects. And so you feel the pressure to fit into a certain role. And I think that's what white supremacy does, right? Like white supremacy says that it's the default and everything else is other and therefore not as good. And then it causes you to suffer little indignities every single day where you're questioning your own, you know, intellect or brilliance or your own, like, am I speaking, you know, correctly? Which is why do white people get to define that? And so I think white supremacy, the point that I wanted to make is that it infects us all, whether you don't have to be white, right, to perpetuate white supremacy. And in a lot of ways it infects all of us. And we have to do the work to constantly reject any and all things that say that we don't have the right to display our full humanity or that our version of whatever is somehow inferior, because it's not. A lot of times it's you know, some stuff is just better, but you know.
Thank you, ladies, so much for answering that with honesty. I appreciate it.